this tutorial video, we're going to go over some of the settings that you can adjust when you're working with characters, props, and text. So let's get started. We'll start by adding a character to our scene, as well as a prop. Let's put a doggy in, and some text. You notice I just drag and drop them into the scene. Now I'm going to double click to enter my text. And there we have it. As you can see, it needs a little bit of work, doesn't it? My character is a little too small compared to my dog. The dog's off the screen. My title's just randomly placed. So let's start by selecting the item. And then if you hover over any of these corners here, you get a double-sided arrow, okay? So you can use any of them, whichever one you want to use, and just drag it in or out to adjust the size. You can also put your mouse on top of the character and move the item around. So let's place him right there. We'll do the same with the dog. We're gonna move it up a little, and then let's make it a little smaller. Let's put the dog near the man. It's man's best friend, right? And then you'll see that we have the option here to flip it or send it to the back. So now the man is in front. Okay, so you can send your characters and props forward and backwards. Or if you prefer, you can delete the item completely by clicking the trash can. Confirm. Now, asset settings here. This is a little too small for my taste, so I'm just going to make it larger. And that's a good start. But we have more things we can do by clicking this little icon here, Asset Settings. So this particular section right here, the font size, is specific to the fonts. But the X and Y and rotate options are available in the props settings as well. So let's just start from the top and work our way down. X and Y. What is this and why does it matter? These are coordinates for your item. So let's see if I move it down. The coordinates are going to change, right? See, so they're different. So you might want to make a note of those settings for your future slides. For example, if I want my future slides to have titles in a similar location, then I'd want to make note of these settings. So I'm going to write those down real quick. 551 by 178, the font size of 73. So let's go ahead and create another slide with some text. Now I could guess. Maybe that's where I want it. I don't know though. Let's take a look. Since I know my settings, I can go ahead and type them in here. So 551 by 178 and the font size 73. So I was close on the size, but a little off on the location. So there, now if I go back, I have the text in the appropriate location. So let's go back into settings. Color. So you can change the color. Click on the little swatch there and either choose one of the favorites down here and apply, or you can use the slider here to find a color, or you could even enter your hex number or your RGB numbers if you know them. You can also use this little dot here to fine-tune the color to whatever it is that you're looking for. Click kind of in this area to get rid of that swatch panel and click Apply. So there's my colored text. I can do the same thing with my characters and props. I can change their colors, so I could have a red outline if I wanted. I'm going to go back to black You'll notice here when I'm working with the character, I have a width and height setting. So I can go ahead and change that if I wanted to. Notice that makes the height larger as well. I can also change the rotation here if I'd like, and flip it if I wanted to. Click apply, and your changes have been made. I hit Ctrl Z to undo that change. Right next to color, we have opacity. And what this means is, let's go ahead and turn it way down. You can use your plus or minus buttons to do that, or you can just go in here and type it in. 50%. I typed in 50 and then hit the tab key. Click apply. And notice now that my character is much lighter than he was before. So that's opacity. Down here at the bottom section, we have enter animation and exit animation. Currently, they're at the default settings. So I have my man being drawn in for 3 seconds. It takes 3 seconds for him to be drawn. I can change that here and make it much shorter and hit apply. If we hit preview, it's only gonna take 1 second to draw him on, as opposed to 3 seconds, which was the default. I'm going to go for 2 seconds. In addition to the draw, you can choose none instead. So now if we were to preview it, he's not going to draw at all. He's already there. And just asset settings was drawn. I'm going to show it to you again because that went pretty quick. Okay? So if you want something already to be on the board before the scene starts, you just want to set that to none. I'm going to go back to draw. I'm going to set it to 2 seconds. And then over here on exit animation, the default is none. And it's 0 seconds, obviously. But you can change that if you'd like and put it to erase. So what will happen now is when we hit preview, my scene's going to be created, and then before any transition, he's going to be erased. And then we have the transition. You can set the duration of the erasure. So maybe you want it to be really quick erase. So maybe 1 second, 2 seconds. Let's do 2 seconds. And preview. He's drawn. Asset settings, erase, 2 seconds. Now, the character did reappear. You might have noticed it during the transition. That image appeared briefly. Now, we are in preview mode, and preview mode is not a completely accurate representation of what you're going to get on the final video. So I'm not too worried about that. And finally, we have this invert option. So I'm going to go ahead and click it so you can see what happens. He disappeared, right? Well, what really happened, he's still there, but his color changed from black to white. And since it's white on a whiteboard, you can't see it. We'll go back and change it. And the reason for that is kind of convoluted. In most cases, you're not going to need to ever worry about that button. But when you're working with chalkboard videos, let's go ahead and change this to a chalkboard. It can come into play with that. So I'm going to click invert, and now he's there. In most cases, Doodly will automatically do the inverting for you when you switch from whiteboard to chalkboard. But there are certain circumstances where it doesn't, like what you just saw. That's because I had turned his opacity way down, if you recall earlier. So I had done some editing to him, and therefore I needed to click that invert button to get him to appear. In an earlier version of Doodly, if you used imported images on your Blackboard video, you would have to manually invert them yourself. They've since changed that, so you no longer have to do that. But if you have some existing assets that you previously imported that were inverted, they would look horrible now that Doodly automatically inverts it, because Doodly is now inverting it back for you. So that little button allows you to override that. So if you have older assets that are in that negative mode, then you're going to want to use that little checkbox whenever you need to use them in a Blackboard video. Okay, so let's go back to our whiteboard. I'm going to turn off Invert, get my guy back, okay? And that's the basics for adjusting your asset settings. Thanks for watching.